Right, hello, hopefully it will be live in a minute. I'm just sorting out the settings on the PC end, because as I say every time, annoyingly, YouTube still doesn't let you save presets, so when you start a stream on your phone, it has all the settings you actually want it on, because that would be useful. So, yeah, there we go. Right, anyway, I will do pop-out chat, and then I can put the white screen on, and it gives better lighting for the stream. Alright, there we go. So that makes that brighter, as you can see, and yeah, I've now got the chat window open there, so hopefully if some people come on, we can look at that there. So I thought most people today probably want to talk about what's going on with Israel and Iran and stuff like that, because, all right, John Doe, just because obviously that is pretty much related to lots of stuff to do with gas masks and militaria and all that. As I said in that video, and I did a video on it earlier, that obviously there is a risk of radiation sort of leaking into various places if nuclear sites are striked. Although, right, Blue Spider, although, like I said, the stuff at the moment is probably going to be quite limited. But if you do get a big fuel-type fire, all right, Roy, regarding targets being hit, then you will actually get quite a bit of radiation. But I don't think they've actually bombed the nuclear power plant itself. I think they've bombed the places that, you know, like the enriched fuels being stored and sort of facilities like that. Yeah, so one of the places that's been bombed apparently is Natanz nuclear site, and that's where they enrich the uranium. So potentially, I suppose, if it's an uranium enrichment facility, if that gets blown up and there's lots of smoke and fire, then that could be quite high levels of radiation. Let me just Google at the moment Iran radiation, just so, all right, Ergiev or Urge, can't really see the name properly there, I'm afraid. Iran says no jump in radiation, but again, if Iran says something, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, currently says it's unchanged. But that's something to keep an eye on as well, because obviously over here there's no noticeable level changes at all. But sometimes when you get radiation, things like that, you won't. Lots of nations away notice it, but if you're in a neighboring country or whatever, you can notice it depending on wind directions and everything else. But yeah, at the moment, so yeah, the IAEA is saying it, who are more believable than the Iranian government. The problem is, even if the building was on fire, they'd probably be saying it's absolutely fine. So yeah, so obviously this might lead to even more sort of influx in prices, if you like, with gas masks and filters and all of that sort of stuff. But obviously most of us at the moment don't really know what's going to happen, because it was only a day or two ago I first saw people speculating that there might be something coming, like a strike or whatever, and those people were right, but it was even faster than they first thought, because some of those people were thinking it'd be quite a small thing at the weekend, and then it turned out, all right, Rajiv, it turned out to be quite a big strike, or like a huge strike, essentially hitting loads of infrastructure and generals and everything all at once. So yeah, it's obviously happened. What's MK World then? I'm assuming something on your new console, is it? The Switch 2 or whatever it is. Is it a game on that? Mario Kart. I was going to say MK could be Mario Kart, but I didn't know Mario Kart World, because I know, like, if it was Super Mario World, Switch 2. Oh, Switch 2. But yeah, so yeah, at the moment, like I said, definitely no radiation here. Whether or not, even though the IAEA says it's fine or whatever, whether or not anybody who might be an amateur radiologist type thing in Iraq or somewhere nearby might notice the levels going up, then they can tell everyone online. But yeah, like I said, here levels are pretty normal, although slightly higher than I'd expect. But I think that might just be because this goes up and down a bit, and it might be that when I put my radium dial away the other day, it's a bit closer to where it used to be to me. But again, and that's gone down to 6. See, it's gone down to levels I'm expecting now, sort of 13. So yeah, 22 levels I'd expect. But yeah, it seemed with this one it might be just if it gets a couple of burst accounts, the dose equivalent goes up quite a bit. Didn't you see anything on the news, Rajiv, that Israel bombed all of Iran's like nuclear enrichment facilities and blew up some of their generals and everything? So you have that massive plane crash that dominated the news yesterday, the Air India one, and then overnight Israel blew up loads of Iranian sort of facilities, and that has now been the thing that's the only thing on the news today. So yeah, so that's been like the thing that, like I said, is the only news story really at the moment, and it means that there's going to probably be some quite big Iranian retaliation against Israel fairly soon. But obviously, Iran's waiting kind of to do that because they have to basically attack back to not appear weak. But at the moment, they're in a really shit position to strike because all their proxies in the area have been wiped out basically, and yeah, they've not got much nuclear material to strike back with, I guess now. So whether or not they're going to do another similar sort of drone swarm attack against Israel, who knows? But yeah, that's the current news. But I bet this is going to, like I said to people, cause gas masks and everything like that to go up in price again. Apparently, fuel has already gone up in price because of it's in that region where in the Middle East, where obviously a lot of oil comes from, and then there's going to be disruption to the oil supply. So apparently, retailers already hiking the prices of oil. They did that very, very quickly. Just trying to work out, because where there's like two little plugs on this bit, what the other one of these little plugs is. One's obviously USB-C, but I was wondering if that other one, what that type of plug would be. Or is that like a little switch in there, like a reset switch or something? I can't see it. It does look like it's a little switch. Oh, like I was saying, it's probably a bit too far, Firebird. Like, in theory, with a lot of nuclear stuff, if stuff gets high enough into the atmosphere, it can land pretty much anywhere. But bear in mind, even with Chernobyl, which was obviously very, very serious, burning for about a week, we were in Chernobyl, you got higher radiation levels in bits of like the Lake District and everything, and, you know, around bits of Europe. But it still, you know, was still obviously kind of in a sphere, if you like, around Ukraine, as in, like, you know, it was quite a predictable wind pattern type thing. Because this is Iran, it's obviously far enough away that I don't think we'd be directly affected. But like I say, a lot of people watch this channel all around the world, so they might be closer by if there's because like I said, the IAEA was saying, right, Rich, at the moment that there's no raise in radiation levels at the moment. But like I was saying, if Israel bombs the right sort of target or the wrong target, depending on how you look at it, and you get burning uranium or something like that, then you might get a Chernobyl style thing of not like, I mean, like a really serious meltdown kind of thing, but just burning fuel that's putting radioactive smoke into the air. Well, stuff is certainly escalating a lot at the moment, John, in terms of obviously you've got the war in Ukraine dragging on with Russia basically stuck in a forever war there. You've got obviously all of the stuff with Iran and Israel and any of the other like things, the Gaza Strip and whatever. And then you've got obviously what was the other things going on at the moment? India, Pakistan, but that calmed down. But again, if that flares up again, that's a potential thing. And you've also got like potentially, and people keep saying it, like, you know, China may be invading Taiwan. But again, that's one of those things, wait and see if it happens, because lots of these things are things that, you know, people keep saying for years and years and years, oh, this is going to happen, and it hasn't happened yet, you know. So yeah, at the moment radiation levels are fine, but as I was saying to people, you might want to be aware that, you know, if yeah, I'd say that's a more likely thing, Firebird, where you're saying something like that serious, maybe civil unrest, stuff like that in the US, where Trump is making himself, you know, I am the king of America. That might be more. It doesn't. It exists as an island, Rich, but it doesn't exist as a country, if you like that, as an independent sort of nation, whatever. So it's one of those things where they're very funny on it in the sense that it's a thing but not a thing. A bit like, I suppose, Gibraltar might be to the UK or whatever, or one of those sort of things. It's one of those weird things like that where they acknowledge it exists and they think they should own it, but they don't acknowledge that it exists as a real country or whatever, I think is the logic of it. You'd have to look up people who are experts in all this sort of type stuff to, find out in detail about that. I am just going to, with this, see if I can poke something into that other little bit and figure out what it does, if it is... Oh yeah, that was a button there that did something when I poked it. It's gone off now. That must be like a force off switch, I think. Just like a force reset, because that properly turned it off. Oh, and it's lost the date now. That's annoying. I have to reset the date on it. So yeah, that is obviously a factory reset little switch there, I guess, if this whole thing completely freezes. So that's what that little button is. It is a button. It's a factory reset button. I won't get into all that, Rich, in case people think I'm being racist. Again, Ohio Uncle, they do exist, but like I'm saying, it's the case that with geopolitics, lots of countries who have beefs with other countries don't think they're proper countries and stuff like that. So that's what I'm getting at with the Chinese CCP and Taiwan thing, as in Taiwan definitely exists in the real world, but the Chinese Communist Party, basically, because they want to own Taiwan, they basically say it exists not as its own nation, but as a kind of, thing. But we don't want to get bogged down just talking about Taiwan the entire time. But again, that's the sort of thing that happens with loads of... I don't know, you have to look it up. I can't remember what the Taiwanese currency is without looking it up. What, the stream, geopolitics? Well, to start with, we were talking more about the stuff to do with Iran and nuclear stuff. Now, I've got a tiny bit of gold, but I'm not interested in getting into gold and silver, because unless it's stuff you physically own, like I know some people trade it in exchanges, but again, with stuff like that, I'd be worried you could have it stolen very easily. So unless you physically own the gold and silver, it's not really worth anything, is it? And then even then, you have to obviously think, could somebody rob me and just take it? But yeah, don't get me wrong. I get why some people definitely think gold is a better investment or silver is a better investment than putting your money into a bank account or a savings account. But oh, that's cool. No, I didn't know that, JJ, because I know that people that I'm not sure if other people had said to me or I read it before with Avon that they'd done the thing ages ago where I'm not going to say ages ago, but where they said that, as a regular person, you could do a business inquiry into buying them, rather than buying them as like a big government agency or whatever. Yeah, they are rich because in mainland China, crossbows aren't you're not legally allowed to own them. Because I know Hype has some like conventional bows, but you can't have crossbows. Although I think as well, though, there are some companies in mainland China that make crossbows for export only, which is allowed. It's one of those things. It'd be a bit weird. It's a bit like if in the UK there was companies that made like, nice kind of sporting firearms, but you weren't allowed to buy them in the UK. They're for export only. I think there are some companies in mainland China that do that as well. All right, Hype. Yeah, so Hype or Hyped on here. If there's people asking questions about China or Taiwan, he might be able to answer better than me. But again, that was a bit of a tangent that went off on because we were talking about Iran and everything and possible. The CM6M isn't a knockoff. It's just a Czech mask that Myra sell at a massively overinflated price. Because like I said, all of Myra's masks, Myra don't make anything themselves. Myra buys stuff... it's called white labeling, like I said in that video. And what white labeling is where they buy products, under license from a company, rebrand it and sell it for a massive up cost in price. So yeah, all of Myra's masks are real gas masks, but they're not made by Myra. They're ones that are made by other companies that they resell for more money. some have names that are almost the same as the name of the real masks. Others have really changed names. I don't think they're all one company now, because at one point Maya only used to sell masks made by the company that did the Om90 and the other one, the panoramic one. But I think now they sell a few different brands of masks. But again, it's all just white labeling, you know. Yeah, as Hype said, it's not a gas mask company, it's a marketing company. White labeling. Well, I don't have that particular mask, but the other Czech mask, the Om90 I've got, and that's meh. I think Botstowo has a CM6 or whatever it's called, and I think he said that's pretty meh. Like, you know, they're not terrible, they're just not that good. As in, it would protect you, but they're not very comfortable. You know, there's lots of bits on them that are heavier than they need to be or feel a bit more brittle than they should be, that kind of thing. So is it a perfectly all right mask? Probably. You know, is it a mask you choose to buy over other masks? No. Is it worth the price Myra sells it for? Certainly not. I don't have a PRVU. If I'd have reviewed one if I own one. I know the one you're on about, but no, I don't own one. But yeah, that radio's still on charge. You sent me, Hype, because I've got that on charge now. I'm hoping after the stream I can it's fully charged and I can play about with it. But I thought I'd give it a full charge before messing about with it. No, don't have a PO box because the annoying thing is in the UK, PO boxes cost quite a lot of money. As in, you'd have to be getting a lot of stuff sent to you to make it worthwhile. So regarding PO boxes, I think they normally cost like £100 to £200 to have them for a year or whatever it is. So I don't bother because of the fact that you know, like I said, it costs a bit. And with PO boxes, you still have the problem that if you give out PO boxes to people and then they send you illegal stuff, you can still get fucking done for it because of the typical UK bollocks. So it's the sort of thing where I bet you if I gave out a PO box address, there'd be people that would try and get you into trouble by sending you like little kind of, you know, ballad songs or whatever, just cheap crap ones, so that when it gets to the thing, if the Royal Mail or whoever looks at it, they'll report you to the police. But thanks for the offer anyway, but like I said, no, it's all right. I've still got enough shit here I haven't got around to reviewing yet. So yeah, like I know some really big channels have PO boxes, but I think that's more for like business style donations. Like I said, what I personally do is from actual companies, I don't mind giving them my details. Again, I've been doxxed before, and lots of my details, as usual, are probably on those sites that, you know, like the info broker sites, but I'm not bothering to pay a company to go and take all my details down from various companies for me. Because I know that, because even though I don't publicly give out my Gmail anymore for business inquiries, I still get companies basically propositioning me with business inquiries. If you're a big YouTuber or biggish YouTuber, you'll probably eventually get doxxed just because some dickhead will get your address through legit means and then decide, oh, I'll try and blackmail you by putting your address online. Not for thinking about long knives, because I've got this here, right? I've got this. Can I have this? This is a long knife. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't carry this around with you in public, but you can own. This is like saying the stupid thing with UK laws is you can own a knife like this with no issue in your house. But there's a few weird types of knives which the government throws shit fits over, which are actually probably less dangerous. But there was a thing in the 80s where they got obsessed with ninjas because of ninja films, and they thought people were going to like carry out violent attacks on each other with ninja stars and like, you know, various kind of martial arts weapons, if you like. So the government had this like shit fit of banning those. So if you ever look up a load of the banned stuff in the UK, a lot of it originates from like 80s and 90s ninja kind of hysteria. I don't know if Weapon Collector did the video yet, but he was always going to do a joke. Right, Middle Harbour, good day. He was always going to do a joke video, and I think other people have done it now, so I'm sure he doesn't mind me letting the cat out of the bag. He was going to do a video called The UK Government Hates the N-Word, or like Persecution of the N-Word, and then the N-Word was going to be ninjas. You know, discriminating against ninjas because ninjas aren't allowed to... Yeah, exactly. It's all fucking cheap kitchen knives and machetes. But why is your comment getting deleted? I don't know. I assume you're typing something in that's on YouTube's banned list of words, which is a stupidly big list of words. That is a Soviet MM1. That one is in an East German bag. But MM1 is in Mike 1. It's an old tank crewman's mast from like the early Cold War. So it's got forward-looking eyepieces. It's quite flat at the side, sideways eyepieces, so you can look through like periscopes and things like that without it causing an issue. You have a question about the PBF gas mask? Ask it. If you were saying something about asbestos, that might be why your comment didn't show up. And if you were asking, does it have asbestos in the filter? I believe it does, but probably in very low percentages, like most Soviet filters. 1 to 2% of the particle layer sort of thing with white asbestos. But again, that's still, should you risk breathing through it? Probably not, but, you know, it's up to you. But what about unstable internet, Ohio Uncle? I've got fucking annoying internet. Our area is finally getting upgraded now with proper fiber optic. So as soon as we're able to switch, I'm switching, you know, to a decent comms provider. But BT has been a fucking joke for ages here because the speed is like right at the minimum of the advertised speed. Because at one point they told us, oh, if you pay more and upgrade, you'll get better speeds, and our speeds didn't change. And they didn't then want to refund us when we complained about, you know, having not getting the advertised speeds. So yeah, but the main problem is about once a day on average now, at least in the hours I'm awake, the internet will go down between about 5 minutes and 30 minutes a day now. And bear in mind, I've bought a much better aftermarket router, you know, and it still happens. So it's the physical line going down to the house. So yeah, as soon as our area is being done by GigaClear, I'm fucking switching to GigaClear because the price per month on the contract is barely different, except it's advertised as up to 900 megabits per second download and upload. So about over 100 megabytes per second, essentially, download and upload, despite the fact that, you know, at the moment I'm getting, if I'm lucky, 7 megabytes per second download, probably less than a megabyte per second upload on a line that isn't very stable. Yeah, that's East German. So you can't see probably very well on the phone, but it's got the weird like hammer and sickle East German thing. The compass and hammer or whatever it is, it looks like a Freemason symbol. Steel helmet. The East German M56 steel helmet is one of the best, even though it looks very goofy. If I've missed any comments, I'll go back to them in a minute. Other than the East German one, in terms of practicality, one of my favourite steel helmets is actually the Yugoslavian one. So they have like a Stahlhelm, but the Yugo Stahlhelm is actually more compact. And yeah, the one I had a really good chin strap where you can use it with nearly any gas mask quite easily because it's one of those straps that is very quick to loosen and tighten. So rather than it being a chin strap, you buckle across it. It's one that's always attached, and then you just tighten and loosen it. So if you're wearing a gas mask, you fully loosen it and then like tighten it to, you know, the thing. Obviously, normally you just tighten it fairly tight to be a proper chin strap. Matty B says, your favourite The Wiggles DVD or CD? Is The Wiggles that Australian weird thing? I've seen a Wiggles creepypasta, but I've never watched The Wiggles. So the person saying, can you own a Leatherman? You can own Harry Leatherman pretty much fine. If a Leatherman has a locking knife on it, technically you need an excuse to have it, but because a Leatherman is very practical, it's one of those things I think you'd have to have a really, really dickhead cop to try and give you issues for carrying it. Whenever I've had multi-tools on me with locking knives, I have never had an issue, but bear in mind I've also never been stopped and searched for carrying one or whatever, but generally Swiss Army knife style and tall ones are the ones that you'd have to be a very pedantic cop to think somebody's going to cause issue because they've got it in their pocket or whatever. Oh, so I asked following what YouTube is being Retro Saber. So he said, do I have to make a makeshift filter for a PBF gas mask, or is there like an adapter or a filter Sadly, there is no adapter to make it 40mm or whatever. So if you don't have the actual filters for it, you could probably try, yeah, like I said, making your own filters somehow for it, or somehow like sticking 3M filters in the cheek bits, maybe, if you could then make it airtight. But yeah, cheek filters aren't really made anymore for any of the cheek filter masks. So yeah, they're kind of masks that, the latest production filters for a PBF are probably in the 90s, I imagine. Same with things like the M17 and other masks that, as soon as nations stop using cheek filter masks, they stop making the filters for them. So sadly, you can't get, once all the old stock of filters are so expired that, you could open one that's still sealed and you'd still smell gas through it immediately. They're pretty much useless. Yeah, saying that's the problem, that you can chuck other filters in them, but the problem is the airtight seal. Because obviously with all the cheek filter masks, they're specifically designed that their size of filter basically completely blocks the airflow except for the intake and outtake of the cheek filter sort of bit. But yeah, you could probably, like I said, if you wanted to turn it just into a particulate mask or whatever, you could probably glue some 3M style like filter pads inside it. But yeah, the sad thing is the PBF is one of the only Soviet masks that has an oral nasal cup in it. So for a Soviet mask, it actually is really good in the sense it doesn't fog up at all. But it's just a real shame they didn't do a PBF build quality just with a 40mm like filter attachment on it. Because the PBF is a way better mask than the PMK, like the PMK1 in terms of comfort and all the stuff like that, and not fogging up. Yeah, as JJ says, like, yeah, the Scott GSR and like the Avon M50, they're like the new versions of the cheek filter mask. It's the same kind of concept. I don't know this Matty B guys. He's making very weird comments. Right, so bye. You're one of those people who's come on and then are like, I don't like you. Right, goodbye then. But thanks for joining in. We learnt that you wanted to ask me about the Wiggles. Other than that, I don't really know. Yeah, again, that's the thing, is a lot of filter caps on those are designed to attach to the actual cheek filters themselves, aren't they? Probably over 150 Hunter. As I've said before, at one point I had a spreadsheet where every single mask, like the year it was from, if the stamp hadn't worn off or whatever, I had documented. At one point ages ago, I had to reformat the computer, all that file got corrupted and I didn't have a backup, and after that I never fucking bothered keeping track of them. So basically, I'll get them, try and do a video on them as soon as I get them. They go into storage if they're not one I want to use quite often. And then, I sometimes sell them if somebody in person sort of says to me, oh, could I buy that mask? Because like I said, in-person sales I like, because you don't have all the issues of, oh, it wasn't as you advertised it kind of thing. No, I probably didn't, JJ. What was that? Did you see your question? If you recommend getting lenses added to optical inserts, or is there... I'd say just get a half face for the mask for the most part, because like I said, I was going to get the optical insert done for my Scott FRR, and then I never got round to it. And I think, like I said, because my eyesight isn't bad enough, I just sort of make do with not being able to see very well with a mask. But yeah, I think for the most part, get a half face mask you can wear with glasses or contact lenses or whatever. Have that as your main thing, and then maybe have a gas mask for if stuff gets really bad. FM12s aren't that expensive. They're normally about £50, £60. Good condition second hand here. Yeah, or JJ, you could get a mask where your glasses can sit on the outside, all right, like with the shums. Because with my shums, I can put my glasses on like that and sort of still. Yeah, like you said, if you can afford it, and it would be the best option to have thing done like that. What do I use a lot for? Sorry, the gas mask hunter. These YouTube videos. As in, I find them interesting, I like collecting them, and I do videos on them, and then people watch the videos on YouTube. That's a shame, hi uncle, but yeah, the actual, like I said, in the UK, is, yeah, sort of €50, €60. You could always see if somebody in the UK would sell you one with like reasonable shipping and tax on it or whatever, because then you'd still get it well under €100. At work, I sometimes have to use masks, and I do well with like I've got a couple of masks that I always use for actual practical stuff if ever I'm working with anything that's particular or like vapor hazard based. But otherwise, just YouTube stuff. The C50 overall, but in general quality reasons, the FM12, as I probably said to you before, like the if there was an FM12 mask itself with just a panoramic bit there, I'd actually really like that. But yeah, the FM12, like I said, in terms of visual style, I like the look of the FM12 more like the Forshida. I always like two eyepiece masks more than panoramics in terms of I think they look cool. But yeah, in terms of actually the mask I have set up ready to use right now, that's my C50. But yeah, the FM12 is the one that, like I was saying, that yeah, is probably, like I said, the thing that's good with the FM12 is it was like Avon's cheaper end mask that works very well. But yeah, like you're saying, so on the Avon website, that's kind of good if you can buy some of the bits for them directly now. Like I said, that's probably good for getting the, like you're saying, the eyepieces for them, or like you're saying, the outserts, that's actually quite good. Yeah, stronger isn't going to age as badly. Again, like I said, there's lots of just like Chinese and like Eastern European masks that are big panoramic polycarbonate lenses. What German gas mask is that? But in general, unless it's a World War One item or something very rare, that's very overpriced for a gas mask. And as 3P3 Paz says, yeah, that is another thing as well. If you've got an old pair of spectacles you don't need anymore, you could, yeah, take the arms off them and then, yeah, tape them or glue them somehow into a mask. Like, just adapt them that way. And then you've got, yeah, like your own inserts. Because a lot of the older masks inserts literally are just the middle bits of a bit of glasses with a specific mounting thing on that goes in front of your eyes. The mods, it depends if they're on. If you're doing a stream and you get loads and loads of people raiding it, you might have to do a dozen or so. Normally, nobody. It really depends. But like I said, some days I think because the streams turn up on the front bit of YouTube for a brief bit, for some people, you'll get random people coming on, deciding they don't like you, but instead of just getting bored and clicking off, they'll start being dicks. So, we've had periods before where there's been like proper organized harassment ones, but that's not been a thing for ages, actually. And when I say that, I mean like where somebody has made about 30 accounts to keep coming back to try and post your personal information in the chat kind of thing. But I think YouTube has got much better, I think, at actually banning people now, making burner accounts for just harassing people. I don't know what they changed. It might be because you have to link a lot more of your real information to the accounts. All right, Snoz? Oh, it depends, John, because like I said, I've had people definitely in real life before doxing me, calling the police on me, that sort of stuff. So I have had that before, but like I said, a lot of the time you will just get, yeah, people just trying to be annoying, like spamming the chat or whatever. Sometimes you'll also get like the annoying thing where you get little kids come on who are just annoying, you know, and after enough warning, you sort of end up kicking them because, you know, they just keep spamming the chat. Or like, oh, I don't know what this is, you know, I don't know what this is. You know, like, because a 5-year-old or something is apparently like, you know, a what would you call it? Ohio Rizzler or whatever has been given the Gen Alphas have been given their iPad or whatever, and they're spamming a chat. So yeah, let me just see if there's let's just see if there's any updates on the Iran thing I was looking at. New airstrikes reported near Tehran. This was reported at 17:24. So the BBC said, in the last few minutes, we verified a video which appears to show the aftermath of a new airstrike near the Iranian capital, Tehran. In a footage which was filmed in the west of the city, there's a smoke plume in the distance and the sun is in the west, so you can tell it's captured in the evening. A BBC colleague has translated the audio in the footage. The speaker begins by saying that it is right now 18:32 local time. This is Gemrarada or something. Now I can hear explosions and you can see the smoke. 18:32 local time would be 16:02 BST, so a little over an hour ago. So when they said a few minutes ago, they actually mean an hour ago. Quality BBC journalism there. They're contradicting themselves in their own thing. But yeah, like I said, so far, no radiation leaking reported, even though I'd expect there would be a little bit of radiation if you're bombing nuclear enrichment sites. But all right, Jess. Again, it's one of those things where if they come on and act mature, I don't mind, they can stay. But it's when you get the people who just come on and spam the chats. Also, you sometimes get the weird ones where there's kids that are probably way too young to even be on YouTube coming on. Like, because when I was streaming The Last of Us 2, there was a little kid that kept asking us about, like, adult concepts. It's like, you're watching me stream a game that's an 18-plus game. Eventually, I ended up blocking that kid, not because he was being nasty, but I was like, you know, if you don't know, like, what lots of these adult themes are, why the hell are you telling YouTube you're over 18 to watch, you know, adult content on YouTube? And then being like, oh, why are you guys cussing and doing all this stuff? It's like, yeah, you shouldn't be on the internet at your age. You know, when I was a kid, I think, thankfully, because it was dial-up back then, I wasn't allowed access to the internet as a kid. But, you know, it's just, it kind of... Which one's the PPM-88? Is that a Soviet one? I can't remember without looking them all up now. There's so many masks with so many names. All right, hang on. Let me search across my channel. PPM-88. The one from 2019, I bought on eBay for like 30 quid, and that was actually the guy that sold me. That was the guy who doxed me, because he used my address after I bought it to then know what my address was as a blackmail thing. The one that Hype sent me, the Briz one, the modern one, I can't remember if I bought that or if Hype sent it me as a gift. So, again, they're probably not that much if you can get somebody inside of Russia to export one. The older one, yeah, so about £30. At one point, they were regularly about £30 to £50 on eBay. Yeah, unplugging the landline, you had to go on to dial-up, and then you got the or whatever the dial-up noises were in your 56k modem. But yeah, and then we had a thing a bit like dial-up, which was proper broadband, but where you had like a big modem on the desk where it had to go in the line, and you could use the phone at the same time, but it wasn't like always on internet. When you turn the PC on, you had to like do a call up to like the modem type thing to still connect to the internet, a bit like dial-up. And ever since, we've just had various degrees of not very fast broadband. So with BT, you know, and there's been ones where we've had a couple of different boxes on the walls, but now I've got an all-in, you know, like router and whatever the other bit of the router is in like one box, you know, like one of the decent Netgear ones. Or is it Netgear or is it another brand? I've got my router, I can't remember. Oh, I can actually look that up. I think it's TP-Link, isn't it? Yeah, it's a TP-Link one, our modem. But yeah, but you know, where it does all the things as one, where you don't need two separate boxes for them. Like I said, but the TP-Link one was an aftermarket one I bought because the BT hubs that they provide you as a broadband customer are awful. You know, you can't port forward properly or any of the stuff like that. All right, Irish kid. Um, I could see more riots happening, John, like in the summer last year, and they're kind of happening in Ireland at the moment anyway. But again, it depends what kind of shit hits the fan. If it's just you're in an area that's in a floodplain and you get flooded and you need to have your own little survival bag because your government's authorities are shit at responding to stuff, that sort of thing, I could understand a lot more. But yeah, I think in terms of like actual really bad shit kicking off, America is the place at the moment where it seems most likely because yeah, because send in the guards, send in the Marines. But yeah, I mean, if I was in America, I'd want to be armed to the teeth and like have all these sort of things because I wouldn't trust the government or my fellow people in America. Yeah, and like I said, it's just was retro says because with the US and Hyper saying the US at the moment with Trump is because like I've said before, I'm not one of those people in Trump's first term. I didn't care much. I thought there was a lot of Trump derangement syndrome in his first first term where. But the funny thing is, a lot of the criticisms, where people said he's going to do all this horrible stuff in his first term that never came true, that's actually kind of been prophetic of his second term. It's just funny that these people were really, really wrong for his first term, where they said, oh, he's going to do all these horrible things, and people will like me, like, no, you're completely scaremongering, and that stuff never happened. But now in his second term, he's actually doing a load of that fucking nut job stuff that people, probably because he's like, oh, I haven't got another term. I just need to do everything I want. Yeah, Trump always chickens out. Taco, yes. But yeah, even the fucking LA stuff's been knocked off the UK news now because of Iran, the Indian plane crash, and the rioting going on in Northern Ireland again. And again, the Northern Ireland stuff at the moment is nothing to do with the Troubles, by the way. It's to do with like some illegal immigrants raping some kids. I should be careful with the words I use on YouTube. But anyway, some bad stuff happening to some kids being done by illegal immigrants, and now lots of angry people turning into like lynch mobs and rioting kind of stuff. So I think that's what the Northern Ireland stuff is. But again, it's that thing of, is what they are doing completely wrong? Yes. But should the government actually deal with people committing crimes properly, not let in lots of illegal immigrants, hold everybody to the same standards of the law? Yes, and you wouldn't get those fucking lynch mobs. But the problem we've had in the UK a lot is that the government doesn't want to be seen as racist or is too lazy to actually deal with lots of criminals like that. So that actually gives, the far right and whatever lots of free political brownie points, because then they can be like, oh, we're the ones who will sort this out. What's a Google form titled "Tell me your most crazy story"? I don't get what you mean by that. Is it a good idea? I don't. What a good idea? Filling in a form? I don't know. Yeah, John. Well, as for what I understand, because I'm not in the US, how it's meant to be dealt with in the US is the local police are meant to deal with it. And then you're meant to have the National Guard respond if the police can't, but it's meant to be the state governor that calls them in, not the president overriding them, isn't it? The problem is, in lots of countries, you have rules to stop dictatorship-type moves, where the government can't just say, oh, something's an emergency, we need to declare martial law type stuff. Yeah, plane crash in India yesterday, as we were saying, that was in the news. Yeah, as Hype said, a self-imported persons performing non-consensual extramarital coitus with persons of the Zuma disposition. Yeah. Because like I said, I don't want this to turn too much into people from America doing the politics dick waving as usual. Because again, you can get people who are left and right on these streams. It's never normally an issue as long as they're all respectful of each other. Yeah, and again, John, this is where I'm going to give you some credit. I bet you in a lot of states, they'll pretend there's not a problem because that way, like, oh, we can stick it to Trump. It seemed to, from a lot of the videos now, people reckon it almost had no lift. As in, like it had taken off and then like the engine's completely cut out or the engine's completely throttled back sort of thing. I know there's people saying about the flaps and other things as well, but again, with the footage not being that high res, I don't know if you can actually tell that properly. But you can certainly tell that it just couldn't thrust upwards, that, We know from the black box, and people said it did use the entire runway now, because there was there was a theory to start with that if they'd gone from one of the taxiing positions on the runway and not used the full runway, they wouldn't have had enough lift. But it was a very experienced pilot, apparently, and it did go from the very rear of the runway. So it probably took off fine initially, and then the engines just cut out. Well, sabotage we don't know, but it's a Boeing. Apparently it was fully fueled, fully laden with passengers. So the theory is that, my theory is that it was a Boeing, and don't fly on a Boeing because of how many problems Boeings have. Well, so, yeah, I still don't know how that guy survived, but yeah, like I said, I keep hearing different things about that. But yeah, what we're learning is Boeing is like a death trap model of plane, because it seems, as long as it isn't like a hijacking or the pilot deleting himself with everybody on board by crashing it, it seems like in general with Boeings, there's just bits falling off of them or bits not working. And again, Boeing used to make really good planes, but for whatever reason, Boeing's quality control went to absolute shit, and I guess completely chasing profits rather than having good R&D and everything else. Yeah, jumping out is a valid reason to be on a Boeing. What's NTSB? I thought the Boeing B-52 was good, though. I like the B-52 a lot. I mean, I still think the Vulcan is a better strategic bomber, but still. Oh, apparently, JJ, what Israel did today, they did a thing very similar to what Ukraine did, with lots of short-range drones slamming into the S-400s and everything, while the main aircraft were en route. So while the AA was going to target the jets coming in, they launched loads and loads and loads of small little drones to blow up all the AA. And they bought Russian S-400s and whatever that have turned out to be not very good. Oh, no, I need to watch that. Sorry, Hype. Yeah, because I was at my granddad's yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to watch it while I was there. Then I forgot completely. I'm sorry, yeah, when I got home. So, yeah, I'll try and remember to watch that in a bit. Yeah, the S-400 might not be awful. Again, a lot of this Russian AA and like Soviet AA was good for the time, and it's probably good if you have it layered with trained operators and everything else. But I think with lots of this, there's ways they can be countered that if you don't have the full-on surveillance type systems, counter systems, your whole thing falls apart. Because again, if you only have stuff that is good at shooting down actual planes or bigger, lots of small drones can just wipe out your AA before the plane's even getting range. Yeah, again, it's just because the FPVs and all that. And again, it's like where people are going, oh, but they'll just jam the drones. It's like that's why you see both sides in Ukraine now using fiber optic drones. Because unless the cable gets cut, and there is a video where some Russians run across, cut a fiber optics drone's cable after it's flown past them and it crashes and explodes. But yeah, if they're going on fiber optic cable, unless the cable gets cut, you can't jam it or anything like that. So unless you suddenly start getting like microwave guns or, like every single vehicle having a little tiny radar based kind of flak gun sort of machine gun on it for countering drones, at the moment they're pretty scary. Yeah, Boeing did do a feature though, didn't they, with the 737 Max or whatever it was, though, Hype, to crash it on purpose, even when the pilot didn't want to crash it, because I think they had a crash in Africa, didn't they, where the plane said, "You know what, pilot? I think I'm just gonna crash." So they did put that feature on a plane. But yeah, like I said, I think it's just a shame over here that lots of British companies don't exist anymore that used to make planes, seeing as we used to have Avro making the Vulcan and like the Lancaster bomber. And then obviously you had all the companies that made, all the fighters, the Electric Lightnings, Spitfire, Supermarine, all those companies gone. I'm sure that there would have been a good British competitor to an Airbus or a Boeing if we still had an industry that didn't, if the government actually saved some of these industries from being bought out and then dissolved. Yeah, I'm sure Airbus has also got its problems, but yeah, Boeing seems to be kind of the joke one at the moment. I don't know if Thatcher did it, or it was just a problem just where lots of governments over the years just didn't step in when they should have done with protectionism. Because the thing is with protectionism, there's no point protecting companies if they are really, really bad and they're going to just hemorrhage money and die anyway. Because it's, again, a bit like the thing with Trump's tariffs is there's probably no point protecting certain bits of industry if they really aren't competitive or are crap. But the problem is we've had in the UK a lot is where we have had businesses that are struggling along, and then the government themselves fuck them over by basically saying, yeah, but because we'd have to pay a bit more for your product, we're going to buy cheap imported stuff. So it's kind of like the government doing the opposite of a tariff, where they're like, yeah, but we want to buy cheap. To import what? Or do you mean just... Oh, sorry, yeah, you mean they want to save money, so they import stuff rather than buying, like your own stuff. But yeah, so like I said, so sadly there's a lot. If you think of nearly everything that was famous British-wise around World War II and into the early Cold War, what also happened as well is you had the brain drain type thing where, because in America they could get lots of British engineers and ones from other European countries by basically offering them much better salaries, So you could go to America to work, be paid way more for doing the same type of work. They basically had this brain drain problem in Britain where, if you were a British scientist or whatever, or engineer, you basically wanted to go to America because you'd earn so much more money and have a better quality of life. And again, that was a clever US government policy at the time to get all the best and brightest people to go to the US. But the problem, so, we had this constant hemorrhaging of just talent. And like I said, and now Britain's this kind of apocalyptic country where all the living standards are constantly going backwards, regardless of who's in power, really, because of, nothing has been invested in infrastructure-wise or whatever. So everything is falling apart. Although I'm not a fan of Starmer or whatever, one of my friends will constantly point out that Labour have actually done some good socialist things, but you never hear about them because they constantly do stupid, bad profile big things. So we then constantly are focused on all Labour's fuck-ups rather than some of the stuff they've been doing in the background. But I don't know, but like I said, Hawker's another good one. But yeah, like I said, there was a lot of well-designed British stuff in that period. I don't think 60mm filters are still made, Ohio, because basically all the NATO countries went from 60 to 40mm. That's why the 60 to 40mm NATO adapters exist in good enough numbers and are made in very good quality. Not like a lot of the 3D printed stuff, because it was actually governments that issued them when they phased out 60mm filters. But yeah, like I said, sadly there was a lot of very cool British stuff in the sort of 40s, 50s, 60s, and then it kind of all just went. I think generally it's the 70s and onwards when everyone thinks of Britain as kind of a dystopian island sort of thing. But you're right, Erlap. Oh, let me just check the news ticker in case anything else has happened. Oh, and we're still at 0.2 microsievert, so we're all right as well. Right, BBC News. Iranian media says nuclear site south of Tehran targeted. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps affiliated Fars Fars, I guess as in Farsi, news agencies is reporting that 2 explosions have been heard several minutes ago near the Fordo nuclear site. Fordo is located south of Tehran, about 20 miles, 32 kilometers northeast of the central city of Qom. It lies about 100 meters underground. There were some earlier reports of people hearing explosions near the site. So apparently Israel is still bombing bits of Iran and getting through all the air defenses. Yeah, Lee Enfield's are good. Like I said, that although I can't remember, was it Lee Enfield? No, the Lee Enfield was based on the Lee Navy and all the other Lees, wasn't it? Which were British designed or whatever, or somebody in the Commonwealth that we could then take credit for it because they had a joint British citizenship sort of thing. But yeah, I like British World War II and early Cold War small arms a lot because yeah, Lee Enfield's, Bren guns, the Sten, even though the Sten is a cheap piece of shit, it does exactly what it needs to be. It's a cheap piece of shit SMG that kind of works. The Sterling is like the Sten but good. But yeah, that was a period where Britain again could make stuff. Like British small arms were generally all right. Britain couldn't really make tanks at that time. Towards the end of World War II and the Cold War is when Britain actually decided we could make tanks that were good. Because it's kind of weird that Britain invented the tank in World War I, as in the first proper tank was, you know, like the Mark I tank or whatever it was. And that's why they were called tanks, is because the government was disguising what they were on paperwork or the MOD or whatever. So by calling them tanks, people might think, the Germans might think they were water tanks or something like that. But yeah, in World War II, for whatever reason, Britain kind of dropped the ball with tanks. Yeah, because that's why they had to get HK to fix it, JJ, because basically at the time Enfield were making them, they were already being laid off. So basically the government said, make this shit rifle really cheaply, and you're losing your job. So no wonder the SA-80 became awful. But yes, sadly we don't make anything like that. The Accuracy International sniper rifles are still made over here, like the L96 and whatever. Because those were made by like the cottage industry thing of a guy in a shed, weren't they? Who somehow got away with making guns without being arrested, because I guess they were pitching in for a contract, so the government let them make guns in their shed. But yeah, it was one where it was a very, very small team of people made those. And then they had a problem because when they suddenly had a lot of interest in the guns, they had to try and scale up operations because it was kind of more of a hobby project rather than being a properly scaled up military sort of gun. Yeah, but like I said, HK at least made them to good quality bits of steel and whatever. Part of the problem was originally. And again, there's some interesting videos Forgotten Weapons did as well of some of the earlier prototypes in the SA-80 series being way better, but each time the government basically said, make it cheaper. So, you know, there would have been earlier versions of the rifle that if they were made to that spec, you know, what, like air arms, billion. But yeah, like they would have been, you know, quite good. But unfortunately, they kept telling them to go back to the drawing board until they came out with the cheapest and worst design of it, which is typical. That, you know, when they first presented one that was a lot better, no, that's too expensive. Yeah, we could have had the EM2 right from the get-go, and it would have been even better. I mean, I've never shot either, but 545 is the one that's probably more practical, as in lighter weight, you know, flatter trajectory. Although 7.62x39 is probably better for shooting bigger targets. But sadly, BSA, I don't think BSA is in Birmingham anymore. I think they're owned by Gammo. I'll have to look this up, but I'm pretty sure BSA is just Gammo's now. Because BSA used to do motorbikes and everything else. So BSA company, let me have a look. So let's have a look. So BSA was bought by an Indian company for £3.4 million, which isn't actually very much for a company like BSA. So BSA, yeah, makes those, but I think BSA air rifles aren't made by that BSA anymore. It's just Gammo make them under like a different brand name. So Birmingham Small Arms Company. Let's so BSA, the Birmingham Small Arms bit, separate from the motorcycle bit. Let's go to does it say oh yeah, it says BSA still continue to make sporting guns, but do they? It says they're defunct 1973 here. Oh yeah, after the Second World War, BSA did not manage its business as well, and a government-organised rescue operation in 1973 led to a takeover of such operations. It still owned. Those few that survived the process disappeared into the ownership of other businesses. So yeah, BSA doesn't really exist now. It's one of those things where, like I said, every little bit of it was broken up and sold to various companies. So yeah, BSA air guns are Gammos. And again, they're good, and Gammo's a good company, but I think Gammo is Spanish, isn't it? So yeah, it's one where basically they're probably made in the exact same. The BSA air guns are probably made in the Gammo factory, and then they just put the BSA logo on it as a different price-pointed gun. It's a bit like how Vauxhalls in the UK were just Opals, but we put the Vauxhall badge on them, so people would buy them because of patriotism. No, yeah, it was to go to say what Rock Hopper was saying and Retro was saying. 545 was like the Soviet equivalent of 556 NATO. 556 and 762 are the standard NATO calibers, and 762 by 51mm. That's kind of interesting, Retro. Is what that for reserves or whatever. Birdshot is normally either lead or steel. Nearly all shotgun shot is lead or steel. As in, I think you can get plastic shotgun pellets as well. Well, I'd buy both if I was in the US. I mean, the AR is definitely a better range gun, as in flatter trajectory, more accurate, all that sort of thing. But there's something I always like about AKs. Like I said, if I was in the US, considering how much money I've spent on stuff that doesn't even fire in the UK, I'd just buy an AR and an AK, and then I'd have to get a load of range time to decide which one I actually liked more. Again, I know in theory ARs are probably a lot better, but, you know, there's still something I like about an AK, because, again, there's lots of YouTube channels I like where people have various guns, and even though they technically have very high-end sporting guns a lot of the time, their most commonly used range guns are quite cheap surplus ones that they just like, you know, it's that sort of thing. And again, with both an AR and an AK, if you're a good shooter, you know, you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of it at most ranges. You're still going to get fucking ripped to shreds by a good shooter with one. Yeah, I like MP5s and G3s and lots of the HK guns from that sort of style. Yeah, but if I could cheat the answer with AK versus AR or whatever, I'd say not Polish, Czech VZ58. Because the VZ58 is looks like an AK but is better in every way. Well, probably not better in every way, but in terms of accuracy, the VZ58 is stupidly better than an AK. If you ever see like 9-hole reviews or any of those sort of very good marksman channels testing them on the range, the VZ58 is just so much better grouping at ranges than an AK. It's not even funny because it's technology, so you know. But anyway, I'll head off fairly soon. So yeah, if you didn't see the video I did today regarding Israel and Iran. Some of you might find that interesting because I did talk a bit about gas masks and Geiger counters and that in it. Yeah, Czechia mentioned, or Czech Republic, whatever you want to call it, and Slovakia as well, I guess, because I've had people get angry at me before when sometimes I talk about Czechoslovakia and only mention the Czech part of it, not as in like, you know, I talk about Czech successes of, you know, like, and then they go, oh, Slovakia made a load of that. So again, I don't want to be mean, so that's pretty cool. So Radom's the company that makes Loden, isn't the Polish arms company, the Beryl and all that. But yeah, the VZ58 I really like. The Czechia and the Czech Republics definitely still exist. Last time I checked, they're still fucking next to Poland. I've been there. Don't do the Finland thing of oh, this is a made-up country like the flat earthers do. That Finland doesn't actually exist according to the flat earthers. So yes, Czechia or the Czech Republic definitely exists. I've been there. I can physically tell you Prague is a real place. It's not made up. And they make very cool guns. Like, because again, the Bren is originally it was called the Bren, wasn't it? Because it was like Bruno Enfield, as in Bruno the Czech arms designer, or like factory. And it was it the VZ26, something like that, or VZ28 originally, the Bren? Brussels was nice when I went to Brussels. Belgian beer is very nice. Don't know about Italian beer. I haven't actually been to Italy. I'd like to go to Italy. But yeah, I can now say when I went on my trip to Germany, I did France, Belgium, Germany, Netherlands, and Austria. So I ended up doing 5 countries there, but I was nearly in Germany for all of it. Austria was literally for 5 minutes, as in the coach we were on, because of a traffic jam on one road, he went into Austria to leave Austria again into Germany because it was faster. And then we just had to get boarded by the police who were questioning what we are doing going through the checkpoints. But we were all right. They realised quickly we're just tourists. Weirdly, we didn't have any bus searches when we went from other countries into Germany. But when we went from Austria into Germany, they wanted to check the bus. Which country have I been to that had the best food? Ooh, that's an interesting one. My favourite thing I ate, actually, when I was away, was probably reindeer steak when I was in Finland. So I'm going to say Finland. Because reindeer was actually really tasty. Because in lots of these countries, you get, like, snacky foods, pastry foods that are all quite similar across a lot of Europe. But reindeer was really tasty. Yeah, I haven't been to Republic of Ireland or Ireland. My dad's been to both Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland quite a few times, but I've not. Yeah, interesting thing, Retrowave, where you're going on about tooling, is apparently the reason the Soviets had so many different guns in 7.62, as in, 7.62 by 54R, 7.62 by 39, 7.62 25 Tokarev, is because the Tsar in the late 1800s or whatever bought some American tooling thing, machine tools, for 7.62 caliber bullets for one thing, and then they used it on fucking everything. Yeah, that's the same. And I don't know how reindeer venison varies from normal venison. But yeah, like I said, reindeer had a really interesting, rich taste. Yeah, I'm one of those people that doesn't eat chicken very much because I just find chicken really, really bland. I know if you put the right spices with it and everything, but that goes for anything. Like, I prefer lamb to beef and chicken just because it has more of an interesting taste. Turkey still... I don't know what guns militarily they make, but I know the term Turk shit is a very well-known phrase for a lot of the cheap Turkish guns that are of questionable quality. Because, like, lots of the companies that made the blank guns also made, like, very cheap 9mm pistols or whatever that were known for constantly jamming and things about that. Yeah, pork's all right. Don't mind pork. Oh yeah, they have the G3 with the magic trigger device on it, don't they? So you can't self-delete yourself, because apparently that was a big problem in Turkish service. So they have these really weird things on their G3s, so you can't point it at yourself and do that. Like, it's a thing, so your hand has to go into the trigger that way. You can't get at the trigger from the other way around. No, Slovakia. Czechoslovakia doesn't exist. Maybe this is what you're thinking of, Ohio Uncle. Czechoslovakia split into two countries, the Czech Republic or Czechia and Slovakia, but both countries still exist. Just like Yugoslavia broke up into Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia, blah, 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 Montenegro, all those. Don't really know. Over here, you definitely get pork chop type foods, but I don't think there's any like national sauce for them. A lot of people just do pork chops with gravy and like applesauce type stuff. Yeah, or finding other ways to do it, Retrowave. Because if you issue somebody with grenades or a pistol, they can also find a way of doing the exact same thing. I quite like Tito. I mean, I'm sure Tito did a lot of dickhead things like a lot of dictators, but Tito was generally liked, from what I understand, in most of the Yugoslavia countries, even when they broke up, as in Tito did a good job. And part of Yugoslavia breaking up was because nobody could be as good as Tito afterwards. And I like that Tito told Stalin to fuck off in no uncertain terms, where Tito, I'll get the quote up. I'm going to read the Tito quote out. Right, I'm reading this out properly because I don't want to fuck this up. So Tito said to Stalin in a letter, "Stop sending people to kill me. We've already captured 5 of them, one with a bomb and another with a rifle. If you don't stop sending killers, I'll send one to Moscow and I won't have to send another." Based. And that, funnily enough, wasn't too long before Stalin had his stroke and died. So there is a theory that Tito had Stalin poisoned. Oh yeah, there's a similar thing with that, where lots of Chinese food in the UK isn't like Chinese food. It's Chinese restaurants doing kind of westernized Chinese food. So, because it's a bit like how chicken tikka masala in Indian places is a thing specifically designed for British people. So again, I think it's probably one of those where it's considered British, but it's not British kind of thing. Just like some of the Chinese food over here isn't really real Chinese food. It's a weird like infusion type thing. Sounds nice, but yeah. So it's probably one of those type things, because you get that with a lot of countries where they've got foreign cuisine that isn't really foreign cuisine. It's kind of like a weird mishmash. But yeah, like chicken tikka masala is just meant to be like tomato soup curry, basically. It's a lot nicer than tomato soup curry, but you get what I mean. It was specifically designed that when they thought people might not want really spicy curries, they did this very mild kind of tomato flavored one. So it's probably a bit like that. Yeah, I think that's the case, John, in loads of places, that when you say, "Oh, I'm getting Chinese or Thai or whatever food," a lot of it isn't really like the national dishes from that country. They're kind of the sort of foods they have over there, then massively adapted to be more palatable to people that, you know, because like I said, I know with some of the Indian places I've been to, they do some stuff that is like genuine, actual, like very popular dishes in India, but then a lot of the menu is just kind of curry with generic different flavorings. And again, it's like with the Chinese restaurants over here, because I used to work with a guy that was from Hong Kong, and he said that, you know, he's going like, "Oh yeah, you do know that, like, yeah, the Chinese food over here isn't like the same type of food you'd get in Hong Kong necessarily." He's like, "This is just, you know, like what would sell well in Britain kind of thing." But again, it's also like where you get the weird thing where people keep going like, "Oh, British can't make food" or whatever, which is another weird thing you see with like some foreign countries where they, you know, decide that, because I think a lot of foreigners look at British World War II ration food and they think that's the national cuisine of Britain still or something. You know, the only foods British people ate are these very bland ration foods. But yeah, like I will admit, obviously, if you look at Italian and French food, they're a lot more interesting. Yeah, like you're saying, Rajiv, I think some restaurants do a mix of both, don't they? But again, they want to do the stuff that's going to sell well, not that it is necessarily very authentic. Yeah, it gets domesticated. Yeah, exactly. Well, I imagine tomato sauce is in the tomato puree kind of unsweetened type one is probably very Italian. But I imagine ketchup with loads of sugar in isn't Italian, if that makes sense. Yeah, if you actually come over here, there is no issue with finding any sort of food you want in terms of, you know, fatty, very bad for you foods, sugary foods, various other foreign imported foods. You know, it's not like you come over here and you have these very bland kind of gruel type stuff, which I think is what a lot of people seem to think, that we only eat gruel over here. That's interesting, Rich. I wouldn't have known that. What's Ding Tai Fung then? Soup dumplings at Ding Tai Fung. Is that a thing that's over here? Let me have a look. I've never been there, if that's a thing. Oh, Ding Tai Fung UK. Okay, so what's this then? Let's have a look. Discover locations. So they're restaurants. So they have one in Canary Wharf, so London, one in Centre Point, London. What another? Oh, they're all in London. Okay, so if I'm in London and I decide I want a Chinese and I go to one of their restaurants, I will try their menu that they do properly, as you said. Thank you, but it's a bit of a trek to go to London just to see if what their dumplings are like. Well, we're in a period now, John, where people could probably ask ChatGPT something, it will get it completely wrong, then they can do some shitty AI video to make false stuff, and people will find it harder and harder to know what's real and not. I think this is the AI dystopia we're going to get. Not the ones people keep saying about, oh, we're going to get Skyneted, but where you can't trust anything anymore because unless you find the original source of information, you'll just be bombarded by AI information that isn't actually correct. Oh, it's an AI slot picture, by the way, for my latest YouTube video. I thought I'd try that because I think with the AI thumbnails, as long as you make it that's accurate to represent what the video's about, it's not too bad. But the problem that I find with so many AI thumbnails on YouTube is where people are making the video look way more entertaining or whatever than it actually is. And also, what really annoys me are the people who do the faces on, like, you know, the stupid reaction faces on every video. Because again, people keep going to me, oh, you probably get more views if you do those like clickbait thumbnails, but I don't want to do those fucking clickbait thumbnails. I don't want to do, oh my god, like reviewing this gas mask next to this mask and all sorts of slightly different. Yeah, like it'd be funny for one or two, but again, there's this one channel whose videos aren't bad. I watch. I can't remember the channel's name without looking it up. But every fucking one of his videos now, because it probably caught on, is where he gets his face going. I keep always thinking he's sucking a cock when he's doing that. But it's his surprised emoji kind of face. He's going like that. He's doing that in one half of the screen, and then he just either gets an AI image now, or he gets just like a news picture and puts it in the other half. And it's like, your content is actually good, but Christ, these thumbnails are awful. Oh, hang on. What Rajiv was saying about Supermax is at McDonald's. I had McDonald's at Checkpoint Charlie, and weirdly, the McDonald's in central Berlin was very different than McDonald's over here. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, what we have as well over here, a lot of the Chinese restaurant type, is the ones where they say Hong Kong style or whatever style, you know, where it's to differentiate how it's done, even though it's an anglicized version or whatever, you know, westernized version. It's still often some of the restaurants will say what variant of area of China it's from, their kind of recipe anyway. Yeah, I just looked on their website, Rajiv, and then looked up where their things were in case they had one that wasn't in London, but sadly they don't. Yeah. I'm going to read that one out, Rich. Don't do a shad with his soy face and AI slop thumbnail of a woman that's obviously his Guna material with his wife's face leather faced on. I'm just fucking imagining leather face. Yeah, like a Buffalo Bill leather face kind of put onto some, yeah. There are a lot of female YouTubers I follow, not as Kuma material, but ones that, again, yeah, that they do very good videos, but they always have a really low cut top for their video, even though it has nothing to do with the video. And again, I know it's because it gets some views and they're making money through that and all that, but it's kind of, yeah, it's like, I'm not watching, you're a pretty lady, but I'm not watching this as my porn material. You know, you don't have to be stimulating at all in these videos, especially when it's ones where it's like women with PhDs and stuff talking about, you know, whatever. It's like, this isn't what I watch to jerk off to, so, you know, you can, yeah. But are those teens they're learning then going to learn something? Because they click for being horny, but then they learn something. Because if so, that's good. But yeah. But like I said, my thumbnails are sometimes, if I can get a good still from the video, then I can crop that and put some text next to it, which I do for some of my videos. Sometimes YouTube just picks an alright thumbnail for me. And like I said, if it's appropriate to do something that isn't too AI sloppy now, I'll do AI where it just fits. But I'm not going to start doing stupid reaction faces and AI things not related at all. And also, don't forget there's channels where it's AI pictures and then it's an AI voice reading a chat GPT script. We've gone full on into the, hello, I am making this video. I still want to do the AI parody thing of Lonely GP5 being adopted by Loving Family or whatever. Like doing a copy-paste kind of bullshit AI, you know, this poor animal was on, but then Loving Family found the animal. Happy Friday. I'm at work, though, tomorrow. Well, it's the first time I've been at work in a couple of weeks because I've had the holiday off. So I'm both looking forward to it and not looking forward to it. Although I think the weather's going to be quite warm tomorrow, which is going to be annoying because where I work, there's no air conditioning or whatever, so it's just going to be hot and horrible. Yeah, so like you said, Retrowave, it's a bit like me. If I see stupid thumbnails, I don't normally click the video. And then, like I said, they might make good content, but then because you've seen the, yeah, like the video with the stupid sort of thumbnail and not clicked it, yeah. The Avon escape hood from Avon's website, the one that nearly suffocated me. That's one of the few Avon products I think is actually bullshit, the escape hood. And to be fair, other companies that do similar escape hoods probably have similar problems with them. But yeah, that Avon escape hood, nope. Do not make those Avon, just make proper masks. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the issue was with my one. Was it that it didn't exhale properly and then it just built up loads of carbon dioxide inside? I'm trying to remember what was bad about the design. Because it's got like the filter bits on like the outside there, hasn't it? But yeah, What's worse, Ohio Uncle, is when people get rare guns and then do shitty paint jobs and things like that on them. Because at least if it's an airsoft gun, it's not rare. But when people buy fucking old surplus guns that are rare, like when I've seen the Brony, the person who done the Brony My Little Pony shit to a K98 and a Lee Enfield, now that makes me angry. Yeah, it was either blocked the air coming in properly, didn't it, or whatever. But yeah, Retrowave, I know it was a very bad design. Yeah, the idea of an escape hood is that you've got like a pre-sealed gas mask that has a short amount of time it lasts. So the idea is, in the event of emergency, you rip the thing open, put the gas mask on and run away. But that's kind of the job of a normal gas mask. So at that point, why not have a very basic gas mask that doesn't have to be fancy to evacuate in? But then, because it's a basic gas mask, you can actually be drilled in it properly. It's not like you're having to rip one open each time. But again, I guess the escape hoods are basically to market them. So basically, we can sell these, and every 5 years when the sealed packet expires, sell some more to companies where they keep like 100 in the cupboard. But I imagine an escape hood would, like again, if they're kind of hard to actually safely use, might be more dangerous than just not having a mask. Yeah, bubbered, JJ, I think it's the word, isn't it? I'm gonna bubba your gun. When you say old UK military mask, Tyren, which mask do you mean? Because there's a lot of old UK military masks. If you mean an S6 or an S10, any 40mm filter on eBay or wherever is going to fit absolutely fine. But I wanted to slip into that accent again now, boy. It's just like, love you, still an accent. Oh, I'm going to Vaseline up that. I'm going to Vaseline up that Luger. And then I'm going to sand it down. Ooh, going to have me some fun with this gun. Just destroy it. Oh, the S10. Yeah, that's 40mm NATO. You can get filters for that really easily. So just look up 40mm NATO filters on eBay or whatever. Scream for me, piggy. There's lots of British World War II masks I like, but I don't like because of the filter content. So I sent a thing to Hype about this. Guess what percentage of the filter is asbestos in the old World War II British filters? In the particle bit, this is. I'm not on about the charcoal, because they didn't randomly just mix asbestos in with the charcoal. But it's a scarily big percent. I'll just tell it you that way. So what, you jerk off, this is my rifle, this is my gun, but you actually have your fun with you again. But yeah, what? Yep, it was 20 to 25%, wasn't it, of the particle layer? So yeah. So on the just show you what I'm on about. The worst one. So on one of these bad boys, this filter canister, how these work with the filter canisters, the air goes in there and then it goes upwards. So the asbestos bit is all at the bottom layer and then the charcoal is in this top ridge layer. This is 20 to 25% blue asbestos in the layer there. And again, I keep meaning to do a video on this mask. I haven't done it yet because I clean this mask up massively. I still need to give the eyepieces a bit more of a clean, but that's nowhere near as filthy dirty as this mask was before. Let me just briefly put this on, and I'm not going to breathe through it. I just wonder what the voice diaphragm type thing's like in this, right? Take a big breath in before I put it on. I'm not going to even try and tighten the straps on that, but there you go. There's a Mark IV British or Mark IV special. And if before I clean it out, that would have literally put like a brown line around my face. Yeah, I'm going to do that hype. Yeah, I've done that on all my other British World War II masks. I've actually put duct tape over those filters. Yeah, if you hear rattling, that normally means there's rips in the filter where stuff's moving about. But yeah, if you put a brand new filter on the S10, it will be fine for everything. Well, with the masks at the time, when you were wearing the masks, they were completely safe. Because with these masks, the filters being intact in World War II meant that obviously when you were breathing through them, the filter material wasn't coming out. The problem with these bloody filters is that it's the people that packed the filters in the factories that died at the really high rates. And that was how Britain first discovered asbestos to be really dangerous. So I sent Hype the study of this because I was actually reading the medical study. So, right, out of a lot of the lung cancers related to asbestos, like mesothelioma or whatever it's called, it was in general per 1,000 people, 0.5 0.5 people out of 1,000 would die in the general population. So like 1 in 2,000 people, if you like, in like the normal control study of the general population, right? Out of the people that worked in these asbestos packing factories, it was about 55 per 1,000 people. Yeah, and like Hype was saying, that and other lung cancers were generally, like 10% plus of the people that worked in the factories went on to get various lung cancers. The mortality rate of people that worked 3+ years in those factories was, I think, like a quarter of the staff were having really bad health issues, like within 20 years, or either dead or having really bad health issues because of all the blue fibers just being up in the air. And blue asbestos is way worse than white asbestos. It's almost like a whole other level of, fucking destroy your lungs. All right, Saint, I did keep saying I was going off and I'm still on. But yeah, so like I said, I need to do this one on this British T-Mic special one. But yes, I am going to tape up this filter. I'm kind of tempted with this filter, actually, to remove the filter from the mask using that bit there and just seal up the filter. If you need a trade account, that's annoying, Saint, because it's a bit like there's sites that sell foods I like that are hard to actually buy retail, but then you need a trade account, like, like a kind of restaurant trade account or like a butcher's trade account to buy them. I might, Hype saying that, take the hose off there and do like what I said with my friends one we did before, where if I can do it without permanently doing anything to the mask itself, because these hoses again are just attached via wire, so it's not a problem to take the hose on and off. I might just try and modify a port directly onto the mask if there's a way of doing it just using like, a rubber seal that could always be cut off if I wanted to. That way I could clean the mask out and actually have the mask, if it's still airtight, working with a PAPR and everything like that. Yeah, Rich. Or if, like say, renovated or just wear and tear in certain bits of the building. Yeah, that was what I was sort of thinking, Hype. What about house fires? Was that retrowave? The British civilian respirator I've got, I can't remember what colour paint it's got on it. I've got a video on it. But I mean, asbestos would prevent the house from burning down, wouldn't it? But yeah, what you were saying there, if you're on about house fires releasing asbestos, yes. Because if the house burnt down, you're going to have lots of crumbling asbestos everywhere. Yeah, I get you. Because after 9/11, loads of rescue workers have had asbestos-related problems, haven't they? Because of all the bits of the building collapses that had asbestos insulation in. So all the dust and that, which is bad anyway to breathe in, was even worse because it had asbestos fibres all around it. Well, it looks a bit like a spaniel. I can kind of see that. I always think these masks are quite creepy looking, and to be honest, I don't know if it's just because they're common in British World War II imagery, but these are almost, when I think of a gas mask, I think of a British Mark IV or a Mark V. You know, that bit in the middle, the hose, the two eyepieces like that. I mean, there's ways to do it, but I wouldn't recommend vandalising an antique like that Dreadnought, because the filter's taped on. So in theory, there's nothing stopping you untaping the filter and rubber gluing something on. But I think at that point, that would be a bit too much effort. Anyway, although being a World War II mask, this does have the really shitty British World War II strap design that I really hate. These kind of two buckles where you tighten the straps between two buckles, and then you've kind of got these anemic elastic straps. The straps on this are really going as well. I don't know if you can see that, but they've gone kind of crunchy. But yeah, the eyepieces are still pretty filthy on that. But, and they yellowed a bit, as you can see as well. The amount of yellow that came off of this mask, and the bag, because obviously the people who own these masks back in World War II were obviously very heavy smokers. So there was just that entire layer of like nicotine-y smoke shit on them. That's the thing I found that's really common with British World War II masks, is just how much tobacco residue there is, all like smoke residue just all over the shit. Yeah, anyway, I better go off as well, hype. Anyway, I'm going to go off now. Have a good thing. VM40 is still good, cooler. Anyway, I'll be going off. Have a good evening, everybody. And all right, Gas Mask Alan. Yeah, I'm off. Bye. I will be on. I probably won't be on at all at the weekend because, like I said, I'll be busy working. So, if there's anything interesting to do as a little post, I'll do it. But I won't have time to do a stream. Right. Anyway, see you, everybody. Goodbye.